Welcome to Kaleidoscope Let's Talk. In the recent past, the media has handled news related to suicide with something less than dignity, and it seems that many of our youth are succumbing to suicide more and more. Sri Lanka's suicide rate is 15 per 100,000 currently, and if we don't take action, that number could climb. What can we do to fix this? And what's that thing that Sri Lanka has to do? With me today is Peshali Fernando, Consultant Psychologist and founder and director of Waves of Transformation, whose work in the field can no doubt lend some unique insights into this burgeoning problem. Times they are changing, they say. How would you rate Sri Lanka, or how would you say we are on suicide prevention and on spotting the signs?
Since I've moved back to the island, since 2017, I do see a remarkable improvement. However, I think people are making genuine efforts, so I would say it's really a good thing. But what I'm finding is that we tend to be non-consistent and we kind of tend to be reactive. So what happens is it goes in waves. So when we see a crisis or hear of one, we really rally together, we start programs and the awareness happens, and then it kind of dies down. The other thing I also see is we don't understand the detrimental effects of mental health, right? We have a dearth of mental health professionals, the stigma that we have. All of this, I think, impede our efforts in proper prevention and early intervention. So I think we really need to make that the priority, but overall I would say we are trying our best to make efforts, and the mental health professionals are doing their best.
What are the common causes for suicidal tendencies among youth here in Sri Lanka?
First, what I want to say is we want to be mindful that what youth might be experiencing as overwhelming stresses could be very different than adults. So we cannot minimize what they go through. First, I would say there are signs such as past history, mental illness, untreated mental illness, thoughts of suicide and previous attempts, things like that are really, really important that we should consider. The other thing that's really important is these situational factors, right, which are called predicaments. Relationship breakups, sometimes love doesn't go the way we want, right? Academic pressure that's so immense at this moment in Sri Lanka. Conflicts in family, cultural norms that are very different from back in the days to now. All these affect as factors, and they are a combination of factors. They are not just one or the other. I also want to address the social factors that we don't really talk about. For youth especially, we may not find an adult who really cares for them, who will listen and pay attention to them. So a lot of the times things are hidden. So there's no place to open up and talk about it. Then there is peer pressure, right? So I think it's a combination, and as a nation, we really should look at not the main factor that we call important, but the situational and the social factors.
How do parents, family, friends spot the signs, and how do we get help?
What we have to do is to know that suicide is preventable, right? So the first thing I would say is the conversations have to begin at home, right? And understand that that safe kind of environment needs to be built for children so they can come in and talk about it. There could be, as friends, we may notice these emotional pain that we may not see, and we feel like, oh, they're just, quote, normal, or they're just as expected behaving. Parents and even teachers, I think, would see the behavioral and the changes in verbal messages. So I think we need to pay attention to all of that above.
How important is it for people to be aware of suicide? And also, what can we do to make it less of a taboo subject?
Firstly, we must know that suicide is preventable. I think once we realize that, we might look at this differently, and hopefully we can make it less of a taboo topic. But recognizing it is difficult. So we should know the verbal signs, we should know the physical signs, and the emotional pain they go through. So its awareness also must include knowing what we can do, cannot do, what we should say and shouldn't say. So what we could do is start speaking about mental wellness at home, right? Have awareness programs, have counselors at school, right? And make it a priority, have policies, have procedures so that we can follow. And I think we have a lack of funding right now, and that is because we have not made mental health a priority.
Society is not very kind to the person who dies by suicide, or the family for that matter. Various analyses are made, there's lots of criticism. How do we understand about suicide so that all this, the negativity stops?
Even as recent as maybe last few weeks, I've heard people say, oh, why is that? When we were young, we were just able to, they would give us a slap or something and we just went on. What is this about, this hype about suicide or what we need to do? So absolutely spot on. I think we don't understand the fundamentals of it. And there's lots of misunderstandings of the detrimental effects that suicide leaves behind in families. Also, we have negative perceptions even about our youth and families who would seek mental help, right? We would say that they're weak. Actually, they're really strong if they do seek mental health support, because that's what we should do. And also, again, socioeconomic levels. So we need to be aware what it is that make people wanting to end their lives. Being able to understand and really grasp that something somebody is going through is unimaginable, and it's unimaginable pain. So I hope that would see the way we think, and a mindset change is needed.
What is Sri Lanka missing? Why aren't we doing more and being more proactive in helping those who teeter on that edge?
We have made some strides to make this aware, but there are some significant gaps, I think, that hinder this comprehensive effort of doing something about it. So if I say what's Sri Lanka missing, I'm going to start with saying an open mindset, okay, and an ability to be non-judgmental, right, and trained professional, a dialogue which will start a conversation, and things like, again, mental health system, I think, is slightly fragmented. We tend to work in silos, right, and funding is really not there. So that would be what's missing. But why is that? I want to quickly add that to say it is because our cultural expectations, our taboos, as we talked about, right? And going to a counselor is looked down upon. So things like that, I think, also what others may say about you. So all these hinder. So what's missing is an improvement in all these areas.
How can the community build up more awareness?
We need to talk about signs, symptoms, what we can do. I cannot re-emphasize this more and more. What we do say, what we don't say, what can we do, and what we shouldn't do, right? So with that mindset, I think what we really have to become consistent in any type of awareness around mental wellness and suicide. So again, conversations at home, imperative that we do school awareness, have school children become aware that they have options, right? And then also get the media, I think, to talk about the positives of good mental health. I think that's really, really important, as well as learn, read, and share. If people are willing to share the positive outcomes of people managing mental illness and managing going to counselor, the things they've learned, I think all that would help us in promoting wellness.
What experiences do you recall that showed you the seriousness of mental illness and what actually happens?
I'll come from it from a global kind of perspective, from what I have seen and heard through my work. So I think, again, I want to talk about the deep pain and the hurt that people go through, and mental illness is really serious. People get isolated, people get marginalized because of that, right? So when they come to us, the unheard stories, the things they say, the unbearable pain, all that is so impactful, right? So if I also recall this outward functioning that I think is really normal that we see here, like kids, they are outwardly functioning because we hear people say, they were doing well, they were doing this, they were doing that, but we don't hear that pain. So we don't have that environment that's suitable for somebody to come and say, we are not doing well.
What words do you have for those who are perhaps on that ledge of suicide?
First thing I want to say, it's okay not to be okay, Okay, it is okay to do that. And that you're not alone, right? Seek help. You're so strong for doing that. Take one step at a time. And I want you to be able to know that there are people out there that's very trusting that they can go to. So I'll encourage them, if they're youth, especially since we're talking about youth, to encourage them to talk to their family, any trusted person, and ask for help. I want you to believe in yourself. You are not alone. You have help. Please seek out. You're very strong for doing that.
What words do you have for parents who have had to deal with a child who has died by suicide?
I want to start saying it's an unimaginable pain, Sabi. And I think I really want to say I'm so sorry for that loss and the loss that you're going through. I want you to know that you must feel your feelings, the emotions that you'll go through, the grief, it's a part of grieving. So the blame, the shame, the sadness, the frustration, thinking that we could have done things differently. So feel those, and at the same time know that in the same family, let's say the parents would grieve very differently. And I want them to be given space to do so. In the process, I'd also want to alert you not to blame each other. I think that's a really important part. Then finally, I also want to say help is out there. Seek professional help, because the professionals, trained professionals, can help you with that grieving process. It's not just about that. Through that, you will learn a lot of self-awareness and insight about yourself. So it makes very powerful healing. And then engage in activities, talk to others. But if you need time for yourself, inform the others that you need time to grieve. And then I think self-care. So the help is out there, and I want to know that there's no right way of grieving. And I really feel for your loss.
It's been a difficult conversation, let's put it that way, but thank you for all you're doing. If you like what you see on Kaleidoscope, please do like us, follow us, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.